Election reaction. Democrats take the House while Republicans hold on to the Senate. We break down the key races. Pro-life push. Voters in 3 states considered measures to protect the unborn. We'll tell you what passed. Catholic in America. Our pollster takes a look at the midterm results and exclusive numbers on the Catholic vote. And asking for help. The family of a Catholic woman in Pakistan who fears for her life is looking for refuge. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, November 7th, 2018.
How are you going to push forward your pro-life agenda?
Just going to push. I've been pushing.
President Trump answers our questions about his abortion agenda and alludes to a solution, calling it a very tough issue. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. We will have midterm election coverage in just a moment, but first, Attorney General Jeff Sessions is pushed out as the country's chief law enforcement officer after enduring more than a year of blistering and personal attacks from President Donald Trump over recusing himself from the Russia investigation. Sessions told the president in a one-page letter that he was submitting his resignation, quote, at your request. Sessions' chief of staff, Matt Whitaker, will be the new acting attorney general. At a press conference today, the president said he was happy with most of his cabinet. In an hour and a half in the East Room, he called for bipartisan cooperation, tangled with the press, and praised soon-to-be Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Republicans will no longer hold sway in all branches of the federal government, yet the Democratic blue wave that some predicted never fully materialized. Let's break down the numbers. Democrats picked up at least 222 seats to win the majority. On their agenda could be a series of investigations into the president's business dealings and potential cabinet member corruption. In the Senate, Republicans added to their slight edge. They will now hold a 51-seat majority. Results show at least 99 women won their House race last night, shattering the record of 84. Voters elected the first 2 Muslim women to the House. Massachusetts elected its first black congresswoman, and Tennessee voted for its first female senator. Our election team was hard at work last night, covering key races. They are back at it again tonight. Jason Calvi is in the too close to call Senate race in Arizona. Wyatt Goolsby reports from Texas on the re-election of Senator Ted Cruz, but we begin at the White House, where President Trump took reporters a sometimes contentious news conference this afternoon about the results. Mark Irons asked one of those questions. He joins us from the North Lawn. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. The president is accepting the reality now of a divided Congress after midterms. And today, President Trump tells me abortion is an issue that has brought divisiveness as well. I asked President Trump how his pro-life agenda can move forward. He didn't go into details, but told me he thinks he has the solution. Thank you, Mr. President. You have campaigned as a pro-life president. You have defended the rights of unborn children. You now have a divided Congress. It's unlikely to pass any pro-life bills.
Very tough issue.
How are you going to push forward your pro-life agenda?
Just going to push. I've been pushing. I've done a very good job, too. We're very happy with me, but it's a tough issue for the two sides. There's no question about it.
But what are you going to do?
There is great debate. What am I going to do? I won't be able to explain that to you because it is an issue that is a very divisive, polarizing issue. But there is a solution. I think I have that solution, and nobody else does. We're going to be working on that.
President Trump took questions for nearly an hour and a half, at times contentious exchanges with reporters.
You should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings
Let
would
me
be
ask,
much better.
if I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask
Peter,
one
go
other
ahead.
question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President.
The president is extending an olive branch to Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi. He says he was not being sarcastic when he tweeted that she should become Speaker of the House.
I really believe she deserves that position. I also believe that Nancy Pelosi and I can work together and get a lot of things done.
The president says he's willing to compromise on tax reform and work with Democrats on infrastructure and trade, and he'd still like to reach a deal on immigration and border security, although he's prepared to take action through an executive order.
We need the wall. Many Democrats know we need the wall, and we're just going to have to see what happens.
President Trump says Democrats winning the House will actually make his job easier. He says it would have been hard to get a slim majority of Republicans to vote unanimously. This way, the Democrats must propose solutions and then work out a compromise with the White House. And President Trump admits he'll be quick to blame the Democrats if they don't. Lauren?
Mark, I understand the administration is making changes to the way health insurance covers contraception methods. Tell us about that.
That's right, Lauren. We're learning the Trump administration has finalized 2 proposed rules providing an exemption from the Obamacare contraceptive mandate. The move will protect entities that object over religious and non-religious morals. Lauren?
White House correspondent Mark Irons. Thank you, Mark. The Arizona Senate race is still too close to call. Republican Martha McSally is ahead of Democrat Kyrsten Sinema by less than 1%. But the state still needs to count hundreds of thousands of ballots. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi reports from Maricopa County, Arizona. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. Maricopa County already tallied close to 1 million ballots. It is the largest county in Arizona. It includes Phoenix and its suburbs. In 2016, President Trump won here by just 3 points. Democrats are gaining strength, and Kyrsten Sinema is up here by 8,000 votes. But statewide, Martha McSally is ahead.
Arizona Republicans watched, waited, and wonder who would win the open Senate seat. They did celebrate early returns, showing leads for Martha McSally.
There we go.
And they cheered Senate wins for Republicans in states like Indiana, Texas, and Missouri.
It's really, really encouraging, though, to see those new Senate candidates win tonight and get that stronger pro-life majority in the Senate, that especially for judges down the line, all kinds of things. It's just really, really encouraging.
Catholic mom Maria Birnbaum is the Arizona field director for the Susan B. Anthony list. The pro-life group knocked on 52,000 doors, pinning their hopes on former fighter jet pilot Martha McSally.
Arizona is the most pro-life state in this country, in large part to do with the Catholic Church here. Bishop Olmsted, I have to give him props.
The bishop of the Diocese of Phoenix.
And he has done an amazing job, and not only, really emphasizing the pro-life message here in Arizona, but also emphasizing our civil duty to vote for people who are pro-life.
One of those politicians, Arizona's Republican Governor Doug Ducey, the Catholic sailed to an easy re-election win. But in the still uncalled Senate race, Arizona and the nation wait for the final tally. And President Trump praises McSally.
Arizona is looking very good, really very good. She's done a terrific job. That was a tough race, and she's done a fantastic job.
We're still waiting. We won't even know who the winner is tonight. Election officials are still counting those early ballots here in Maricopa County and elsewhere. Voters in this county can go onto the county website to check if their ballot has already been counted. Lauren?
What is Kyrsten Sinema saying today as she's waiting for the results, and Martha McSally as well?
Yeah, neither of the candidates is giving up. Martha McSally says she's confident that today will bring good news for her campaign. Sinema says there's lots of reasons to feel good. McSally is up in the latest count of votes. She's up by about 16,000 votes statewide.
Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi in Arizona. Thank you, Jason. Republicans in Texas are breathing a sigh of relief after a razor-thin victory in one of the nation's most followed Senate races. Democrat Beto O'Rourke just fell short of unseating incumbent Ted Cruz, but Democrats are celebrating the close margin in a traditionally red state. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby has been following the Cruz campaign from his hometown of Houston. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. Both Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke say they are proud of how they ran their respective campaigns. Both volunteers, as well as high-stakes fundraising and engagement on social media, all led to a surge in voter turnout here in Texas. And in addition, Ted Cruz is the one who came out victorious and with a message of unity.
It is my hope that with the bitterness and division we see nationally, that Texas can be a model for how we can come together, disagree, yes, but with civility.
Senator Ted Cruz calling on Texans to come together after a fierce battle against a charismatic Democrat in Beto O'Rourke. Cruz got over 50% of the vote with more than 4.2 million. O'Rourke got a little over 48%, which translates to a little over 4 million. The 46-year-old congressman, however, didn't exit the stage quietly. O'Rourke thanked his campaign supporters in his native El Paso.
I am as inspired, I'm as hopeful as I have ever been in my life, and tonight's loss does nothing to diminish the way that I feel about Texas or this country.
O'Rourke attracted national attention, raising over $70 million and picking up celebrity endorsements. Musical artist Beyonce, a Houston native, posted a picture of herself Tuesday on Instagram wearing a Beto baseball cap. Celebrities are not happy about his loss. Actress Alyssa Milano saying, "Beto lost? That's okay, now he can run for president." Olivia Wilde echoes that, saying, "Beto 2020. Cruz is using it to his political advantage, saying Hollywood money was trying to buy the Texas election.
We saw a $100 million race with Hollywood coming in against the state, with the national media coming in against the state, but all the money in the world was no match for the good people of Texas and the hard-working men and women across our state.
Some Democrats say this is the beginning of the end of Texas as a red state. They say they're on the verge here of turning it blue, but political analysts say not so fast. You have to keep in mind, they say that Ted Cruz is a divisive figure, even among Republicans and in Washington. They say take a look, for example, at other Republican races. For example, the governor, Greg Abbott, who was able to win his reelection by a wider margin. Lauren?
Wyatt, how important was it for Ted Cruz to appeal to social conservatives, pro-lifers, and others who are in favor of traditional marriage?
Well, the Cruz campaign says it was very important for them to talk about these issues. They played really to their base, if you will. They went for conservatives and talked about a lot of issues that they care about here in Texas, things like the Second Amendment and other gun rights, border security, in addition, the pro-life movement, as you mentioned. Texas Right to Life, the pro-life group here, congratulated Ted Cruz and put out a statement saying that they believe that Cruz will continue to fight for pro-life causes in Washington. Lauren?
Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby reporting from Houston. Thank you. Joining me now from Addison, Texas, is another Republican winner from last night, Attorney General Ken Paxton. Welcome back to the program, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's good to be back on a day after the election, for sure.
You must be done with that. Our exclusive research, Ken, found that immigration was a concern for 89% of our weekly church-going Catholics. How important do you believe the immigration issue was to your reelection and to that of Republican Senator Ted Cruz?
You know, I think it's really important. It's an issue that transcends, I think, parties, socioeconomic groups, because people care about safety. And since we live along the border and we've experienced significant crime as it relates to illegal immigration, I think it affects everybody here, no matter where they're from or where they live.
If the president stops issuing dire warnings about this migrant caravan, how hard do you think it's going to be for you to make progress on solving the immigration issue in Texas?
Look, I think the first thing we have to do is secure our border, and I at least believe the president has focused on doing that with, whether it's a wall, more technology, which I think is a useful way to approach this, and also more Border Patrol agents. So if we can secure our border, then I think we can start having a conversation, hopefully soon, about what is the best policy for our country as it relates to immigration. Certainly what we have now, I don't think it's working.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said today that he will push for funding for the border wall. How likely is it now, post-midterms, that Republicans can get this done?
I think in the Senate, likely. I don't know with the House transitioning to Democratic control whether they'd be willing to tackle this issue. From what I've seen in the past, they've tried to keep it out there as an issue for future elections. I hope that Nancy Pelosi or whoever ends up being Speaker is open to working with the president, working with the Senate to come up with a bipartisan solution that is good for the country.
I want to talk to you about Beto O'Rourke, the Democrat who lost against Senator Ted Cruz. what it showed to me is that it's indicative that Republicans could lose their grip on Texas. Your thoughts?
Well, there's no doubt that he ran a very good campaign. He was well funded like nobody else has ever been, I think, in this state, maybe in the country. And so with significant resources, with a, I think, pleasant personality, he had obviously very liberal positions that didn't fit the state, but he did show that there is opportunity. I think Republicans just need to be better organized and better prepared for the next race.
What are your thoughts on the breaking news today that Attorney General Jeff Sessions was asked to resign? He's out.
Not surprised at all. The president has been suggesting that that was going to occur at some point, probably post-midterm elections. We all know that they don't have the greatest relationship. He's spoken about this publicly and he's spoken about it privately. So I'm not surprised at all. I think Jeff Sessions is a fine man. He did a great job as a U.S. Senator. And my office worked with him well over the last 2-3 years. And, you know, we've enjoyed working with him. But I think the president made his call. It's his decision.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, thank you.
Thank you.
Republicans flip a crucial Senate seat in Missouri. 38-year-old Josh Hawley defeats incumbent Claire McCaskill, 51.5% to 45.5%. Hawley previously worked for the Beckett Fund for Religious Freedom here in Washington, D.C. He was endorsed by Missouri Right to Life. And in Florida, 2 races received national attention. Both winners are pro-life. In the governor's campaign, a razor-thin victory for Republican Ron DeSantis. He defeated Democrat Andrew Gillum 49.7% to 49%. In the race for Senate, Republican Rick Scott defeated Democrat incumbent Bill Nelson 50.2% to 49.8%. Nelson has indicated he may ask for a recount. Pro-life ballot measures win 2 out of 3 states. Alabama and West Virginia approved changes to their constitutions. Alabama inserted language that it will recognize and support the sanctity of unborn life and the rights of unborn children, including the right to life. In both states now, there is no obligation for the public to fund abortions. Alabama also passed a proposal allowing the 10 Commandments be placed in public schools and government buildings. The plan to block taxpayer funding for abortion in Oregon did not pass. Coming up, our Catholic in America segment. A polling expert analyzes how Catholics voted in last night's midterm elections. And now for our Catholic in America segment. An EWTN News Nightly exclusive poll by McLaughlin and Associates found Catholics were engaged in the voting process. 87% said they were likely to vote in the midterms, with 50% saying they would cast a ballot for a Democrat, 37% choosing a Republican. We also asked about President Trump, and 56% of the faithful disapproved of the job he was doing, with 42% approving. But those numbers are a little different among weekly churchgoers. 54% approve of the job the president is doing, 45% do not. And joining me now from New York City is John McLaughlin himself, CEO and partner of McLaughlin and Associates, a national survey and strategic consulting firm with decades of political experience. And John's firm conducted our News Nightly exclusive Catholic in America poll. Welcome to the program, John.
It's great to be here.
John, your exit poll numbers show that 25% of voters in yesterday's midterm elections are Catholics. Based on your extensive experience conducting polls about Catholics, what's your analysis of the Catholic vote and its importance?
It's a critical swing vote that whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, if you win the Catholics, it's likely you're going to win the election. And as you cited the September survey, which was probably taken late September, while people were forecasting a blue wave, the Republicans had ground to make up. And last night in our national survey, which we're releasing, you're getting the first exclusive here, among the quarter of the votes who were Catholics, the Republicans gained, but they didn't win. They got 45% of the vote. The Democrats held their 50%. The president, his job actually improved to 52 and 47. And the Catholic voters themselves, I guess they surged with a lot of the Republican votes as the president went around the country post-Kavanaugh. those Kavanaugh hearings, Catholics, I think, were kind of repulsed by the whole thing because there was somebody who they could identify with who was smeared, and the smears were baseless.
Who went
and it
to
seemed
Georgetown
that a lot
Prep.
of it was because he was right. And he might be perceived as a pro-life Catholic. Who knows until he's on the court and renders some decisions, but we don't know.
As we just reported, 56% of Catholics surveyed for this News Nightly poll disapproved of the job that the president was doing. If we really drill down, though, to these weekly church-going Catholics, 45% disapproved. How do you think that affected the vote?
Well, I think they came around. Actually, the president improved his numbers since that survey, and through last night, he had a net positive job approval among Catholics, 52-47. And I think the Kavanaugh hearings and the way he stuck with Judge Kavanaugh actually improved his standing among Catholics because of a lot of it was related to issues they would care about.
Immigration was a top campaign issue for President Trump, and candidates across the country, 67% in that poll that we conducted of weekly church-going Catholics said they support tightening restrictions on migrants and refugees entering the country. Did that surprise you, given church teaching on immigration, outpouring of aid from Catholic agencies and parishes for the migrant caravan?
No, because most Catholics, we're relatively new immigrants ourselves into the country, whether it's this generation or a couple removed, but they like immigration to be legal. And they like people to, we do focus groups, and when we ask people whether they're Catholics or not, do they have a problem with people coming in the country and on the amnesty issues? And they say, well, you know, we came here legally and we played by the rules. And they know that the United States takes in 1 million immigrants a year, but they do it legally. What they resent is when people, their phrase that we get in focus groups is when they jump the line, when they don't play by the rules, or they're just coming here for a job and they stay in the country. And it seems unfair to those that play by the rules. So the Catholic voters you're talking about are citizens who have played by those rules. And ironically, last night in our survey, when we asked Catholics, who do you approve or disapprove, or who do you prefer to handle immigration issue, 43% to 35%, they said Donald Trump and the Republicans, and 65% of those Catholic voters oppose open borders. So they really want to play by the rules and have the system fixed. They don't like the idea of refugees coming to the country and seeing people not taken care of, but they would like to have a legal system that makes sense, that seems fair to everybody.
John McLaughlin, pollster and CEO and partner of McLaughlin and Associates. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you, Lauren.
Up next, the world watches as Catholic Asia Bibi struggles for freedom. The Catholic Church in Guam will file for bankruptcy. It means the Archdiocese will not face trials in dozens of clergy abuse cases. Those cases instead will go straight to settlements. Lawyers for victims applaud the move. Church officials say the Archdiocese will remain operational despite the ruling. Italy is working to help relocate the family of a Catholic woman acquitted after being sentenced to death for blasphemy in Pakistan. Asia Bibi's husband says the family's life is in danger. Bibi was convicted in 2010 of insulting the Prophet Muhammad. Pakistan's top court acquitted her last week, but she remains in jail after the verdict was appealed. Insulting Islam is punishable by death in the Muslim country, and the mere rumor of doing so can incite lynchings. Joining us now from Rome is Vatican correspondent Juliet Lindley. Juliet, Italy's government has taken a hard line against migrants and refugees. What is it saying now about Asia Bibi's case?
The Foreign Ministry here, Lauren, is saying that it's coordinating with other countries to ensure safety for Asia and her family. In a statement, the ministry says that it's ready to act on whatever the Italian government might decide. Now, that's an indication that an offer of asylum might be in the offing. German Chancellor Angela Merkel's Conservative Party is also calling for Germany to grant Bibi refuge. Now, it comes after Asia's family and her husband in particular appealed to Donald Trump and British Prime Minister Theresa May to help his family leave Pakistan. Now, neither the US nor the UK has commented as yet.
Is the Vatican linked to this move? How has the Holy Father been involved in Bibi's case?
Lauren, we reached out to the Holy See press office, and Greg Burke, its director, tells me he doesn't believe the Vatican is involved, but Pope Francis has spoken out on several occasions in favor of Bibi's release from jail. Now, earlier this year, the Holy Father met the woman's husband and daughter when they actually came to Rome.
What has been the reaction in Pakistan to Bibi's acquittal?
Well, when the top court in Pakistan acquitted her last Wednesday on the charges carrying the death penalty, the decision infuriated hardline Islamists. Lauren, they held 3 days of nationwide protest demanding her execution. The protesters set fire to vehicles, and they blocked highways, and they attacked government and public property. A radical cleric also threatened to kill the 3 judges who acquitted Bibi. Now, those protests prompted the government to impose a travel ban on Bibi until her case is reviewed. Even her lawyer has had to flee the country because he fears for his life.
Juliette Lindley, EWTN News Nightly Vatican correspondent, thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, thank you for watching. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Follow me at Lauren Ashburn on Twitter and Lauren Ashburn EWTN on Facebook. Good night and God bless you.